Anthony ultimately stabbed Metcalf once in the chest. Austin Metcalf died from that wound. Anthony admitted he had done it. The defense argued self-defense. The prosecution argued that the use of deadly force was unreasonable under the circumstances. The jury sided with the prosecution. Now, let me tell you why I think the defense lost this case.
An appeal being filed by the Karmelo Anthony family. Does this appeal have much of a chance at overturning the verdict?
No. The fact of the matter is that appeals are always very low percentage probabilities.
Grace and peace, everybody. You saw the thumbnail, you saw the title. Let's get at it. So the Karmelo Anthony appeals question has really come up quite a bit. A lot of people have questions about it. Found a fantastic legal mind that talked about it. So we're going to bring John Untunga in to give him a chance to tease it out. So let's go. John, get up here in front of the church. Let's go. Let's go.
Karmelo Anthony has now been convicted of murder and sentenced to 35 years in prison for the death of Austin Metcalf. The jury rejected self-defense. They rejected manslaughter. And they sentenced Anthony to 35 years, meaning he will not even be eligible for parole until he has served approximately 17 and a half years, which is the approximate age of Austin Metcalf at the time he was killed.
Interesting.
I wonder if that played any part in the jury sentencing. A life for a life, perhaps? Now that the trial is over, many people are asking the same question. Can Karmelo Anthony win an appeal? Let's talk about it. But before we get into the appeal, let's set the stage. Back in April of 2025, Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf attended a high school track meet in Frisco, Texas. A dispute broke out over seating under a team tent. The confrontation escalated. There was physical contact. Anthony ultimately stabbed Metcalf once in the chest. Austin Metcalf died from that wound. Anthony admitted he had done it. The defense argued self-defense. The prosecution argued that the use of deadly force was unreasonable under the circumstances. The jury sided with the prosecution. Now, let me tell you why I think the defense lost this case. And frankly, I don't think this is a controversial opinion. The prosecution came into court with a straightforward narrative: argument, confrontation, knife, death. The prosecution had the burden of proof. The defense did not have to prove innocence. The defense did not have to prove self-defense. But they still needed to give the jury a reason to doubt the prosecution's story, or a reason to believe the stabbing was legally justified. And I never felt like they did that.
Never did.
And the biggest reason is something a lot of people don't want to discuss. The defendant, Karmelo Anthony, never testified. Now, let me be crystal clear. Karmelo Anthony had an absolute constitutional right not to testify. The Fifth Amendment protects that right. The jury is not supposed to hold that against him. But jurors are human beings. And in a self-defense case, the entire case turns on one question. What did the defendant reasonably believe in that moment? Did he reasonably believe that he was about to suffer death or serious bodily injury? Who was the best witness to explain that? The defendant himself. Karmelo was the only person who could tell the jury what he saw, what he heard, what he felt, why he was scared, why he believed a knife was necessary, why he had the knife in the first place, which is something I wanted to know.
Right.
Maybe there were good answers to those questions, but the jury never heard them. Instead, they were asked to infer his state of mind without hearing directly from him.
And I just want to add, and this is fantastic, very clear and to the point. Not only would he have answered those questions, but I think it would have cast that doubt on what the prosecution was going to say, for sure. But I'm wondering if the reason he didn't is because he ultimately could not have justified what he did, because he wasn't jumped, he wasn't threatened, he was told to leave. He did decide not to leave. He didn't have a good valid reason for another alternative reason for why he had that knife in his bag and why it was open, why he used it. He didn't have any of that. And that's what I think happened. But let's go.
And that's particularly significant because self-defense cases are fundamentally about perception.
Mm-hmm.
The jury wasn't being asked whether danger actually existed. They were being asked whether Karmelo Anthony reasonably believed it existed.
Right. There we go.
To me, that was a major problem for the defense. And it became even more significant because the defense didn't present much evidence that supported the self-defense theory. In fact, the defense's affirmative case was remarkably brief. The defense only called one witness before arresting.
Crazy.
And his testimony arguably helped the prosecution more than it helped the defense. The witness was a student who observed portions of the confrontation and testified that Karmelo escalated the verbal confrontation. Now, while some aspects of his testimony may have supported the defense, much of the testimony did not provide the kind of evidence jurors typically expect to hear in a self-defense case. The witness acknowledged that Austin Metcalf was unarmed, and the testimony did little to explain why Karmelo Anthony reasonably feared death or serious bodily injury at the moment he used deadly force. Again, the defense did not have the burden of proving innocence. But when your entire theory is self-defense, you still have to give the jurors something they can hold on to. You have to give them evidence explaining why your client reasonably feared death or serious bodily injury. In this case, the jury never heard directly from the one person who could best explain that fear, Karmelo Anthony.
And I'm going to say it again. I think it's because there really wasn't a valid reason. There really wasn't. Now, I could be wrong, but if there was a valid reason, they should have shared it. They didn't share it because there wasn't a valid reason. He was wrong. He was wrong. And I think most of us need to just accept that. He was wrong. He did wrong. And where he is the right place for him to be for the next 17 and a half, at least many years. That's just it. I hate it, but that's the reality. But let's go ahead, John. Finish up, brother.
Nor did they hear substantial testimony from other witnesses supporting that theory. So the result was that the jury largely heard the prosecution's version of events. And when that's the only story jurors are hearing, convictions become much easier. So let's talk about the appeal. And this is where many people get confused. An appeal is not a new trial. An appeal is not an opportunity to call new witnesses. An appeal is not an opportunity to tell a better story. An appellate court does not ask, would we have convicted him? No. Instead, the appellate court asks, did the trial court commit a legal error significant enough to require relief? Appeals exist to correct errors of law, not disagreements with the jury. All right, so what are the strongest potential appeal issues? Let's talk about Batson first. Now, this is the issue everyone is talking about. The defense argued that prosecutors improperly struck Black prospective jurors. The prosecution responded that the jurors were struck because they were educators. The trial judge accepted those explanations and denied the Batson challenge. The defense preserved that issue for appeal. Now, the problem is that Batson claims are very difficult to win. The appellate court will generally defer to the trial judge unless the defense can show that the race-neutral explanations were not genuine. So what would help the defense? Comparative juror analysis. If the prosecution struck Black educators but allowed similarly situated non-Black educators to remain, that could strengthen the Batson claim. But based on what is publicly available today, that remains an uphill battle. All right, so the next issue is the one that interests me the most, the provocation instruction. Now, after reviewing the jury charge, I noticed the jury was instructed that self-defense could fail if Anthony intentionally provoked the confrontation as a pretext for violence. Texas law does not allow that instruction in every argument or every fight. There must be evidence supporting it. The appellate question becomes, Was there enough evidence to justify giving that jury instruction? Now, that's the type of issue appellate lawyers love because it involves a pure legal question. So another possible area is evidentiary rulings. Were there pieces of evidence that should have come in but didn't? Were there pieces of evidence that should have been excluded but weren't? Now, those are common appellate issues in homicide cases. Then we have ineffective assistance of counsel. A lot of people are already talking about it.
Yeah.
Basically saying that Carmelo Anthony's lawyer didn't do a good job. Personally, I don't see a strong ineffective assistance claim based on what we know today.
Y'all hired him.
Obtained self-defense instructions, stand your ground language, no duty to retreat language, manslaughter instructions, sudden passion instructions. All of these were included in the jury instructions.
Mm-hmm.
Those are significant accomplishments. Now, could there be facts we don't know yet? Absolutely. But based on the public record, I don't currently see a slam dunk ineffective assistance claim. In fact, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that because I would have handled parts of the trial differently, that automatically means the lawyer was ineffective. And that's not how this works.
Yeah.
That's not the legal standard. The question is whether counsel's performance fell below constitutional standards and whether that likely changed the outcome. That's a very high bar.
I agree.
Now, finally, there will almost certainly be a sufficiency challenge. The defense may argue that no rational jury could have rejected self-defense. Now, historically, those arguments are extremely difficult to win because appellate courts give enormous deference to the jury. The court must view the evidence in the light most favorable to the verdict. Now, that is a very difficult standard for any appellant to overcome. So where does that leave us? If I'm ranking the potential appellate issues today, I would focus on number 1, Batson. Number 2, the provocation instruction. Number 3, evidentiary rulings. Everything else appears considerably weaker. And at the end of the day, this appeal is not about whether people feel sympathy for Carmelo Anthony. It's not about whether people agree with the jury. It's not about politics. It's not about social media.
Right.
The appeal asks one question. Was the trial legally fair? That's the question the appellate courts will now have to answer. And if I'm being completely honest, while I do see legitimate appellate issues worth examining, I don't currently see an obvious slam dunk reversal issue. I don't. The strongest arguments appear to be the Batson challenge and the provocation instruction. Whether those arguments are enough to overturn a murder conviction remains to be seen. I'm David Otunga, Esquire. Let me know what you think in the comments. Does Carmelo Anthony have legitimate appellate issues, or do you think this conviction will ultimately stand?
Shout out to David.
Circus.
Shout out to David Otunga. Actually, I want to bring in another content creator as well that addresses another legal expert that talked about this and gave another analogy that I think will really help clarify this for us. And we'll see what actually happens when the smoke clears. But I'm going to bring this in very quickly. Let's go.
All right, we got a lawyer on the show to put some expertise on this legal situation with the Carmelo Anthony appeal. I'm James Parker. It's the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins on from 11 to 2. Check them out if you haven't already. But my buddy Jeremy Rosenthal back on the James Show. And Jeremy, we have an appeal being filed by the Carmelo Anthony family. Does this appeal have much of a chance at overturning the verdict?
No. The fact of the matter is that appeals are always very low percentage probabilities, especially in Texas. And in North Texas, we have, it's called the Fifth Court of Appeals, which is in Dallas. They don't really reverse much of anything. So the short answer is almost certainly at this phase, no. There are some other measures that his team can take that are sort of a little more long range, and we can discuss that, but it gets legally very, very muddy.
Now, they're not actually reviewing the merits of the case as much as they are the I'm to understand the functions. They're looking for a technicality, looking for a mistrial, maybe a challenge that the jury wasn't of his peers or something, but not the actual details of the stabbing.
Right. An appeal is not a do-over. An appeal is, think of an appeal like instant replay in a football game. So in a trial, the court reporter is typing everything down, and all the parties have filed documents with the courts. That's called a record. And an appeal, a direct appeal, which is your first appeal, the first thing that you do, is always going to be of what happened in court, who said what. And so when we go to the instant replay analogy, think of a football game, think of the Cowboys game, right? Where Des Bryant caught that touchdown pass that they robbed us with back, I don't know what year it was, right?
It was the Green Bay 2016, but who's counting?
Not that we remember these things, right? So anyway, what we would do is you play the full game and then you get an outcome. And then what you would do is you would focus on individual plays and say, well, the ref got that wrong and the ref got that wrong. But just because they got that wrong, would that overturn the entire game, right? If this was a 77-0, wipeout, and they got one holding call wrong, then that kind of makes a difference. So there's a two-prong analysis. The first is, was there a mistake by the referees? And number two is, would that mistake result either in a different outcome, maybe a constitutional violation? And really, in this case, kind of looking at it from 40,000 feet, I just don't see a lot, at least not on direct appeal.
All right. Well, hang on. Legal analyst Jeremy Rosenthal from TexasDefenseFirm.com. I mean, I said it like a minute ago. Already got a correction. It was in 2015. Sorry. This is what it's like being a talk radio host. You get corrected on anything you say wrong. It is so childish. Anyway, Jeremy, my other question for you in this Karmelo Anthony appeal, there is now a new legal dream team, 6 lawyers working pro bono. What the heck do you need 6 lawyers on an appeal for? And what is the draw for these lawyers to even want to participate in this?
Well, so they get their name on it, and it's a high-profile case. And I'll tell you this: Russell Wilson, who is the lead appellate attorney, is an outstanding lawyer in every way, shape, and form. And he's got some good lawyers on there. You don't need that many lawyers to handle an appeal. You just don't. This is going to be a very big record, and it probably doesn't hurt to have that many minds. I'm not familiar with some of those folks. Some of those folks I am. But Russell Wilson's an outstanding attorney, and he'll do a great job. And if you've got that guy working for you pro bono, you ought to take it.
Nice. All right. Well, Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. Thank you for your legal expertise and explaining the Karmelo Anthony appeal process.
All right, shout out to Jeremy. I appreciate it. I'm going to leave the link to that down in the description as well. Definitely go check out that as well. But hopefully that helped shed some light on the appeal process. It's not a do-over. It's not an instantaneous new trial. It's not going to automatically guarantee that you get new evidence and new witnesses and all that kind of stuff, new jury. None of that stuff is there. There's a long game here, and it doesn't look good. It doesn't. But let me know what you think. Comment down below. What did you think about David? What did you think about Jeremy's opinion on this? Does it match with the facts? Not what you feel, but the facts that you've extracted from this. Let me know what you think. Comment down below. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for liking the video. Thank you so much for subscribing and helping us hit our goal of 100,000 subscribers. I appreciate y'all so much. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the JWhit Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor and hit me up with that 3-piece special. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, share it with somebody who would also enjoy this type of content. And make sure you leave a comment, because I do pin the best comments to the top. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace.